All right, today we're going to be talking about low volume training and why me personally, why I've switched from a, 3 to 4 set approach to a more 2 set approach for my exercises. So this all really stemmed from after I was having a discussion with one of my friends who's recently gone to the gym and he's making some really good progress. And he asked me, like, Braden, like, we're doing upper body. It's like, why do you only do 2 sets of, dumbbell bench press when I'm doing like 3 to 4? Right? And it really made me think about it. And I had a couple points that I brought up that I have them listed here that I want to go through and just kind of, because I think it'll bring some value to whoever's watching, right? If you're in a similar situation where you're doing 3 to 4 sets and you feel like you're kind of like spinning your wheels, I encourage you to try and, take these points and apply them to your lifting. So with that being said, let's go with my experience, and we'll start off with point number one. So for me, time saving and productivity. So yeah, back in the day, you can kind of see some of my older training videos. I had the luxury of a home gym and also being a teenager. So infinite time plus not having to wait for anyone on any of the equipment was a huge lifesaver, and it made the gym environment for me very relaxing, almost like a little dojo. And I could spend my entire evenings there or afternoons there just working out, right? And that kind of encouraged the mentality of 3, 4, 5 set training. But now that I've moved out and I go to a commercial gym here in Canada, uh, you can't really get away with all of that. I have responsibilities nowadays, and if I were to train for 2 or 3 hours a day, I'd be back home at like 12 a.m. You know what I mean? Like, so, and like I have to go to work in the morning. I just can't do that. I don't have the luxury of it anymore. So by switching my approach from higher volume training and just you doing a lot of that, switching my majority of my exercises to being 2 sets has really allowed me to save a lot more time in the gym, spend a lot less time on machines or certain areas in the gym, so that way I'm not being a fucking hog, hog on the squat rack or a certain machine. So I'm more considerate about other people's time. uh, and overall, just it's a huge time saver in that regard. So it helps me get into the gym and get out while still having and still maintaining a good training session, and getting enough quality work done. Let's just say that. And I guess this kind of bleeds into my next idea of intensity. So uh, before switching to this methodology, oftentimes I wouldn't train very intense, because when you're doing 3 to 4 sets, and especially if it's like a heavy lift, that first set, and I'm talking about working sets here, that first set, you kind of half-ass, or at least I was half-assing it, because I knew I had like 2, maybe 3 more sets after. It's like, fuck, like I'm gonna die here. I'm so fatigued, right? Um, and granted, my work capacity back then was probably a lot better because I was doing more volume, but I wasn't training as intense because it was more so like the psychological aspect. I find that when I've lowered my volume, if I'm doing 2 sets, I'm gonna push those 2 sets hard, whether it be RDLs, bench press, squats, etc. Any exercise that I do, especially if it's like a compound. If I only have to do 2 sets of that exercise, I know that those 2 sets are going to be good, high quality, intense sets, right? So rather than doing that 3 to 4 set approach, honing in and really focusing on 2 sets has allowed me to progress better, get stronger, and just have overall higher quality sets, which will bleed into the third point, being intention. Um, I'm a training enthusiast. I wish I was as, detail driven in my diet as I am my training, because my diet's kind of shit. But my training is dialed in. I have a notebook. I write down each cue. I write down how I felt, all that stuff. I'm pretty typical about, pretty precise about my training and what I do. And doing 2 sets has allowed me to just keep easier track of the type of training that I'm doing and how I'm performing the exercise. Say for example, if I'm doing like my old approach, 3 to 4 sets with bicep curls, right? With bicep curls, you know, if I'm doing 4 sets of those, I might not be training with intention. I might just be training just to get the 4 sets, right? And it also kind of ties in with intensity. I wouldn't be training as an intense. I would just be training to get my 4 sets. And, it's good to track your lifts and it's like, okay, I know I did 4 sets, but those 4 sets, they weren't intentional. They weren't good. They weren't towards a goal, right? So by lowering to 2 sets, if we're gonna go with the bicep curl example, I found that, not only do I train more intensely, but also um my curls, my technique has been better because if I'm doing 2 sets, I can focus on those 2 sets and focus on the cues. How did that first set feel? I can, change things on the second set. And if I'm really feeling the third set, I might do a third set of bicep curls because I like doing bicep curls. But the point is, I've been able to train with higher intention and I've really honed in on my technique. So that's what doing 2 sets has helped me out with. And then fourth thing, which is, pretty inherent to just doing lower sets, is my recovery is better. When I would do 3, 4 sets of, squats, deadlifts, bench press, more so like the lower body lifts, um, I would be so tired. My rests were like 5, 6 minutes, and I wasn't even lifting, as heavy as weights as I am doing now. But it's just that my relative fatigue to those weights is just I was just so much more tired because I was gassed, right? Like, but, my work capacity was probably better back then. And if we're being totally honest, I think when we're talking about pros of higher volume approach is that your work capacity just gets increased. And I might start implementing some certain techniques to increase my work capacity. But I think my point still stands is that for the type of training that I do, which is mainly, bodybuilding and muscle building centric, lower volume is just better. But yeah, so with doing lower body, kind of got a little derailed there, but with doing lower sets, sorry, I find that um, what's it called? My recovery is just better, just because you're doing lower volume throughout the week, but you're just training more in intensity. Um, I find that my rest times are shorter. I'm more pumped to get to my next set, and overall just I feel better. I don't feel as like cranky. My joints are good. This goes in part with intention. My technique is good, so my joints aren't crying. Anyways, yeah, but and like I can hit consistently. My 4 days a week. I don't skip out. And very rarely I skip out, and if I do, it's because I'm just fucking lazy or life gets in the way, whatever. Um, but yeah, like doing 2 sets per exercise has really helped me to, recover better and just really be more consistent. And I guess I don't even have a fifth point here, but just fifth point is I just find it more enjoyable. At the end of the day, the type of training and the type of training style that gets you to go back to the gym is, the best approach for you. If you like doing higher volume training, because it's, the old school way, Arnold did it, go for it. But for me, I find to get the most bang for my buck within the gym, doing lower volume has given me the opportunity to, increase my numbers, progress more, feel better, have more mental clarity, all these things. So that's why I do it. Yeah, and let me know your thoughts on this. If you agree, if you disagree, if you have any more questions regarding the topic, let me know. But yeah, that's been me.